I would be bringing my wife and children back to the UK at this point, and the things that they're going to miss is, well, everything.
Prince Harry eventually spoke when no one was expecting it, and the stillness he broke reverberated well beyond the royal gates.
Not a surprise to anybody. It's really sad that it's got to this point, but I've got to do something for my own mental health, for my wife's, and for Archie's as well, because I could see where this was headed.
Every single time you have those headlines, we all get that there's a really big urgent message.
And as he spoke directly to Meghan Markle, each syllable felt more weighty than the last. In order to provide some context for my being here and my work with UN Women, I would like to share a tale with you. What started out as a straightforward statement swiftly became a revelation that upended long-standing narratives and shocked both supporters and detractors. Was this a moment of loyalty, regret, or something far more explosive that might permanently alter how the world perceives their narrative from the point at which silence gave way and the truth revealed itself?
Fathers who've lost a child to online harm. However, Newsweek reports it's now been passed over to another organisation called Parents Together.
It took place in silence, perhaps on purpose. Last week, within a personal well-being at the Men's Mental Health Symposium in California, Prince Harry seemed at ease, cautious, and remarkably thoughtful. There were very few cameras, very little reporters, and no desire to make headlines. This was not intended to be a stage, but rather a secure space. One of his remarks on fatherhood, identity, and well-being felt familiar, even kind. He acknowledged that he missed portions of his former life, missed the UK, and felt incredibly sad that he might never be able to show his native country to his kids. It sounded like longing for a second. Then the mood changed. With surgical precision, one question pierced the silence. Had he ever experienced like he fell in love and lost himself? People in the room said that Harry froze. Instantly, the expression transformed. The grin vanished. His shoulders became tense, and the ensuing silence seemed raw, weighty, and unplanned. When he eventually spoke, it lacked polish and practice. It had a release-like sound. There, he said, was a moment when he couldn't identify the man in the mirror. He thought he was gaining independence before realizing that freedom might resemble a cage at times. The quiet that followed wasn't polite. It was taken aback. Those words didn't stray. They exploded. A video from the conference went viral on social media in a matter of hours. Commentators played it again, frame by frame. His tone was analyzed by analysts. Psychologists discussed the meaning. The royal observers did not think twice. This was neither intellectual contemplation nor abstract introspection. It was clearly laden, specific, and intimate. Freedom may seem like a prison. Wasn't an airborne metaphor. For many, it made an obvious direction. According to sources, this is behind Montesotto's gates and royal walls. The moment did not appear out of nowhere. It was the outcome of quiet pressure mounting for months without a single catastrophic dispute or collapse in public. Insiders near the Sussex Circle explain a gradual, piece-by-piece revelation that Harry is coming to. Throughout these fissures reportedly grew further once their Netflix aspirations collapsed. Markle, who seems to have given up on another endeavour. The network of parents was part of the couple's Archewell Foundation. Meghan Markle advanced. More initiatives, greater visibility, and greater narrative control. Meanwhile, Harry desired the opposite. Space, silence, and tranquility. It was stated bluntly by one source. He is worn out and weary of serving as the emblem, the shield, and the voice. The man who never disagrees. Harry thought he was saving Meghan for years, shielding her from what he's seen as a stifling and inflexible institution. His sacrifices have significance because of this idea. But now, softly and painfully,
Markle, who appear to have abandoned another project. The Parents Network was part of the couple's Archewell Foundation.
That the concept has started to change. He is beginning to wonder if he was ever the savior at all, or if he was gradually vanishing while doing so. Since he observes his former world progressing, his father concentrating on leaving a legacy, his brother settling down, and the monarchy adjusting, Harry seemed to be stuck in an awkward limbo without him. Not quite anchored, but free. And that one instance in California might have shown something much more than regret or homesickness. Because when the door opened, it didn't appear to as if it was intended to close once more. Will Harry recover himself as he moves between freedom and imprisonment? Or has everything been permanently altered by the door he opened in California? Remain with us. The script spilled out at that time. Of his hands. The image that appears next is much more ominous, heavier, and darker. No longer a working royal, Yet not really free either. Prince Harry now exists in an odd compromise. He is surrounded by affluence, security, and comfort. However, sources claim that the seclusion has grown crisper with time. Those with direct knowledge of the matter claim that Meghan, almost immediately after the Wellness Summit event went viral, Markle noticed the change. What came next? There was a tightening of control. Initiatives, public appearances, messaging, even informal discussions. According to reports, everything is now filtered to avoid surprises. The fear is straightforward yet potent. Harry is speaking without a script once more. And yet that's precisely what took place. Hours after the video went viral, according to insiders, there is mayhem behind closed doors and urgent contacts between public relations teams, desperate efforts to keep the story in check. Fired messages asked the event organizers how the video got released and whether there was any more. However, it was too late to respond. It had already been dubbed Harry's slip of truth on the internet. The words felt uncrafted, unapproved, and unguarded for once. Additionally, something otherwise, it was as striking. Harry didn't rush to walk it back or provide an explanation when the fallout started. He remained silent. The silence felt different this time. Since it is now more difficult to ignore the pattern. More solo appearances, different schedules, and less collaborative interviews. When Harry does appear in public, people who know him well claim that he has a newfound sense of weight. Friends characterize him as withdrawn, intensely contemplative, almost distant. One former, even his closest friends were unnerved by a detail provided by a military comrade. Harry used to take over the room, talking and laughing non-stop. He now sits silently, gazing into his glass as though his thoughts are elsewhere. Away. Then came the remark that made that friend freeze. Harry acknowledged that sometimes he misses being invisible. Let that settle. A man who turned his back on one of the most prominent organizations on the planet is looking for privacy, and now wishes he could vanish completely. That everything is reframed in a single sentence. It implies that the independence he sought did not materialize as promised. Rather, it had contracts, cameras, demands, and an unwritten insist on performing at all times. Although the palace was inflexible, life outside of it comes with a form of imprisonment of its own. This change is particularly noticeable, since that it doesn't feel abrupt. It has a cumulative effect. Years of serving as the spokesperson, years of taking criticism, and years of defending choices that might not have been entirely his. The transactions, the interviews, and the ongoing exposure to the world was marketed as emancipation. However, they demanded that he continue to be vocal, visible, and in alignment at all times. And today, as his closest friends and family quietly admit, this was never merely about one viral video or one remark at a meeting. That instance did not produce the break. It made it clear. The insight has been gradually emerging, agonizingly. Additionally, once it came to light in public, it was impossible to back. Because when a man acknowledges he wants to vanish, it raises a considerably greater risky query. What would happen if he ultimately chose to give up playing the role completely? And now, as Harry becomes more silent, the dilemma of whether he will fully restore himself or maintain the illusion persists. Already started to break forever? Continue to observe. When the mask broke and priority was given to the brand, and by now it was obvious that this was no accident, no thoughtless verbal blunder. The Wellness Summit was the occasion when something buried at last. It forced its way out. What had appeared to be freedom was now a polished cage, constructed from quiet guilt, privilege, and expectations. According to insiders, Meghan Markle could observe the change as it happened. Real time, not theoretically. Harry wasn't suddenly falling apart. He was slowly, clearly, and in front of the globe. The couple's closest friends and family aren't only stress inside the marriage. Relationships are constantly under stress. Where the priorities seem to be going is what worries them. Several sources state that the current focus is failing to mend the rift that exists between two individuals. It is safeguarding what has been constructed around them. The image, the brand, the meticulously preserved narrative. Because this honest version of Harry, it is not only emotionally dangerous for the contemplative guy to talk without approbation. He has a strategic risky. It was said frankly by one Hollywood insider. If Harry continues to speak in this causes the illusion to fall apart. And that can't be once that illusion breaks. Rebuilt. That's the worry quietly driving everything behind the scenes. Due to Harry is no longer merely expressing his feelings. He's exposing control, patterns, the gradual deterioration of identity, The hidden price of love when it becomes caught up in contracts, power, and cameras. Now, every line feels loaded. Every pause seems intentional, like a man determining if he's still permitted to exist outside of the character he's been provided. The location of this is the most uncomfortable aspect. Not in a private journal in public, where nothing can be taken back, rather than in therapy once it touches down. Each time Harry speaks, it sounds less like introspection and more like a silent experiment, a test to see how far he can go before the walls close. In Once More, based on what transpired, Montecito's response was prompt and harsh. If Harry's admission at the California Wellness Summit shocked everyone in Sussex, those earthquakes became far more devastating as a result of Meghan's response. Minutes after the video became viral, with millions of views and many repetitions, it became viral on all media. Comment sections are filling up more quickly than any team could handle. The term freedom sometimes appear as though a cage has taken on a life of its own. Repeated, examined, and weaponized. Insiders say Meghan jumped right into crisis mode. Phones rang without hesitation. Advisors rushed. Messages were sent out in each direction. According to one story, there was complete turmoil within the Montecito mansion. With her phone locked in her palm, Meghan paces barefoot across marble floors. Voice increased, giving clear, concise directions. Take it down. Make her call all of them. Now put an end to this. However, their remarks meant that there was nothing left to stop. We're already out there, ingrained in the memory of the internet. Retraction was not possible. Delete them. They could not be softened by any explanation. No expertly made joint, they might be placed back in the bottle by a remark. And right then, something fundamentally changed. Harry's words were no longer the problem. It was the awareness that he had said it at all. Additionally, once a guy speaks without authorization, quiet becomes unreparable. Now that those statements are permanent, do you believe Harry will continue to shattering the silence, or will the narrative eventually get out of hand? The truth refused to apologize, and the story faltered. For several years, Meghan Markle had handled the public narrative with almost perfect accuracy. Each appearance was measured. Each quotation was molded. Each camera angle conveyed a distinct version of their identity and the reasons behind their departure. Control wasn't merely a tactic. It was survival. However, the script escaped this time. Her hands. And that loss of control went deeper than everything that had come before it, according to those close to the marriage. According to insiders, Meghan confronted Harry as soon as he got home. There wasn't no cautious wording, just ease into it. What transpired was neither a dispute nor a heated conversation. By all accounts, it was among the most explosive conflicts they had ever experienced. They raised their voices. There were several accusations. Meghan allegedly informed Harry that he had deceived her, and that his remarks had made her appear cold, cunning, and manipulative. She accused him of providing the media exactly what they had always wanted, of turning her become the villain in a narrative she had been attempting to safeguard for years. According to one source, she told him bluntly that all they had worked for had been ruined by him, and that years of careful planning had been undone by a single act of honesty. Placement. Those acquainted with. The exchange said Harry paid attention. However, something this time, it was different. He didn't shrink. He didn't express regret. He made no attempt to make things better. For the initial, he didn't back down for the first time in years. Rather, he answered with 6 words. That completely altered the room's mood. Nothing was destroyed by me. I simply stated the facts, nothing more. According to insiders, the ensuing hush was hefty and instantaneous, the kind that seems louder than yelling. Next, Meghan stormed out, reportedly shaking the chandelier with the force of the door bang. However, that residence wasn't the only location of the actual explosion. Already, it was extending well beyond it. The response on the internet was quick and merciless. The video was slowed down frame by royal viewers. His stance, his pauses, and the way his voice weakened at specific points were all examined by TikTok specialists. YouTube in a matter of hours, channels pushed out breakdowns. There were endless Twitter discussions that revolved around the same topic. In conclusion, Harry wasn't performing anymore, he was breaking. Even the press in Britain, the Harry sensed an opening, a force he had fought for years. The morning headlines were incisive and unrelenting. Cryptic admission. Problems in heaven. Regret or freedom. The Sussex fairy tale disintegrates. There was no speculation in the tone. It involved surgery. However, in the midst of the chaos, an unexpected thing emerged. A close friend claims that Harry didn't appear upset in the aftermath. He appeared lighter, almost relieved, as though speaking the words aloud, even in part, had relieved a burden he had been carrying for years. That companion described it as witnessing a man at last acknowledge, if only to himself, that this wasn't the life he thought he was selecting at the time. If there were requirements attached to the promise of freedom, he didn't see it all at the time. And after that insight takes hold, it doesn't remain silent for a long time. Because the tale doesn't start again when someone stops apologizing for their truth. It changes. Additionally, those who constructed everything around the previous edition are compelled to determine what is more important. Preserving the image or facing the consequences when the man in the middle doesn't no longer consents to cooperate. However, the realization fades as it takes hold. Silent for a long time. Will Harry be able to escape at last? Will the old tale crush him? When the spin starts, stay glued. Failed, and the quiet spoke louder. Meghan Markle wasn't ready to let Harry's remarks stand alone. As per individuals acquainted with the after that, she acted swiftly, firmly, and purposefully. Inside hours, extensive damage control was in progress. They called in favors. Reliable reporters were contacted. Carefully crafted justifications were discreetly supplied to a few channels. The reply came quickly, refined and unrelenting. Nearly instantly, well-known headlines started to show up. Harry is brittle. Harry is worn out. Harry was misinterpreted. That wasn't how Harry meant it. Every single version sent the same message. Rethink the situation. Soften its meaning. Shift the emphasis. However, the tactic had trouble landing over time. There was no need to translate the clip. It didn't depend on framing or context. It was unvarnished, transparent, and intensely intimate. Confusion was not audible to viewers. They heard clarity. Additionally, as Meghan's group propagated the notion that the pair was stronger than ever, the internet responded in an uncontrollable way. Retract your push. No publicist could keep up with the speed at which comment sections filled, repeating the same direct conclusions. He appears to be unhappy. She's protecting herself, not him. This isn't affection. Control is what it is. The more refined the story, it seemed more strange. Every effort to make the narrative flow more smoothly simply made it more focus on what seemed strange since, according to sources, behind closed doors, the stress never subsided. Thick, steady, and inevitable, it settled in. According to reports, the atmosphere in their house is tense, not explosive, but heavy in a way that doesn't fade away. Harry, formerly recognized as the loudest presence in any room, has changed. According to friends, it is hard to miss the transformation. He's not upset. He doesn't act dramatic. It feels strange and uncomfortable that he is quiet, reclusive, and contemplative. Because fury flares, many close to him think that silence might be the most hazardous development of all. Out. When someone starts to genuinely awaken, silence is a sign of introspection. Seldom do they go back to sleep. Those who are still in contact with him report lengthy periods of time spent alone. Harry wanders the grounds late at night when the house is empty, spending his evenings by himself. Is calm, sitting unmoving by the fireplace, peering into nothing as if revisiting years of choices he had previously thought were inevitable. There are no tantrums, no public scenes, just distance. And in this case, distance is important. The way this moment fits with everything that came before it is what makes it so unnerving. The confession at the peak, the reluctance to apologize, the 6-word reaction that shifted the dynamic inside the residence. When combined, they create a pattern that is difficult to ignore. It's not a dude. It's a man reevaluating, spiraling. Additionally, reevaluation jeopardizes systems based on control and consistency. The media machine, meanwhile, keeps grinding forward. Every day, there are new pieces that try to draw attention to portray the narrative as a momentary stress or an emotion that was misconstrued. However, the audience isn't progressing. If anything, they're keeping a closer eye on things and listening for what Harry says after that, and maybe even more crucially, what he chooses not to say. Because something has changed below the surface. Nor loudly, nor aggressively, but sufficient to be sensed. And as the hush surrounding Harry deepens, those closest to the matter recognize the danger. Not of another incident that went viral, but of a man who quietly realized that the revelation, that his life no longer feels like his own, once fully generated and seldom remains contained. Will Harry now be able to restore his life? Or will the quiet signal a storm no one saw coming? Keep an eye out. the peaceful respite from the world that made his decision. Those close to Prince Harry claim that behind the scenes, a modest but very significant change has been taking place. He no longer answers calls from a number of Hollywood acquaintances of Meghan Markle, individuals who had constituted the core of their social community in California. No one responds to invitations. Messages remain unread. The glitzy circle that previously characterized their new existence has gradually vanished from view. Additionally, insiders are certain about just one thing. This distance is not coincidental. It's intentional. Just one source characterized the epiphany that caused it as abrupt and overpowering. At last, Harry realized how alone he had become. There is no family in the area, no childhood friends stopping by. He was not grounded in everyday life by any recognizable voices. For many years, the people who knew him before the titles, before the trauma, before the cameras had withdrawn from his routine. They were replaced by a well-curated universe of strategists, producers, and social climbers, all orbiting one core influence. As stated by those who knew him, Harry realized that the only steady voice influencing his choices for a very long time had not been his own. According to accounts, that comprehension struck like a tidal wave. Because when the illusion breaks and you start to doubt what is genuine and what has been fashioned for you, there is no turning back. Every recollection is re-examined. Every decision feels more difficult. And that's when Harry did something nearly no one saw coming. Rather than stepping up public declarations, or he became silent, trying to steer the story. Then he extended his hand in reverse. Not to favorable journalists, not to tabloids, and not to influential people who may use the narrative to his advantage. He made contact with former acquaintances, old friends from the army who had met him casually and without any expectations. An ex-palace assistant who has consistently watched out for him, even when it was inconvenient. These weren't really dramatic calls. There were no announcements of plans or ultimatums. According to insiders, the discussions were straightforward, circumspect, and quite intimate. They had nothing to do with mending the public's perception or making amends with institutions. They were about re-establishing his sense of reality and recalling his former self before his life turned into a show. Prior to contracts, his every action was determined by deals and international attention. Prior to each word having to go through several levels of review. According to some who are close to him, these discussions have fundamentally altered something. Harry is not looking for guidance on his next course of action. He's inquiring as to who he used to be, about what was important before love became public and loyalty became strategic, regarding if the person he was prior to all of this remained has a role to play in his future. And that's why it's so risky to the buildings surrounding him. Not rage, not defiance. Contemplation. Systems are disrupted by reflection, much more subtly and thoroughly. Friends describe Harry as calm but vigilant, as if he has been avoiding the truth for years, but he is gradually coming to terms with it. The seclusion he once acknowledged as the price of independence. It now seems like a warning sign that he disregarded for too long. As he moves closer to the life he recalls and farther away from the one that was selected for him, the quiet surrounding him becomes more purposeful. There are fewer influences, voices, and diversions. And for the first time since he left the UK, Harry's closest friends and family think he is no longer wondering how to get through this life, but if it was ever really his in the first place. What, then, did Harry find in the quiet of his own existence? And what lengths will he go to in order to recover the identity that was subtly stolen from him as the focus changed and the silence grew icy? Harry was drawing inward at the same moment. Those who are near Meghan Markle claimed that she was starting to fall apart. Once public opinion was firmly on her side, was rapidly altering. The enthusiasm that formerly enveloped their media agreements reduced to a crawl. Netflix's zeal subsided. Spotify was already gone. Invitations that used to come in with ease started to disappear, and the one thing she was positive would never change. Harry's unwavering devotion was no longer felt safe. Uncertainty, according to insiders, set off what they call a counteroffensive. Meghan started organizing a high-profile, glossy magazine feature that would reset the story once more. The objective seemed urgent but familiar. Reframe herself as being misinterpreted, unfairly singled out, a victim of disinformation and misogyny. That strategy was effective in the past. It didn't this time. Hollywood took its time. To protect her, former allies were silent. Fashion editors hesitated. Talk the hosts of the show glanced elsewhere. Once dependable, even A-list buddies maintained their distance. The empathy that had previously protected Meghan had diminished into something much colder. Quiet. Additionally, others claim that during that quiet at last, tension started to manifest. One employee said they heard Meghan late. During a phone call one evening, she broke down as she claimed that she had sacrificed everything for Harry. Everything solely to feel like the antagonist now. It was intensely personal, passionate, and unvarnished. However, no one in their immediate vicinity was prepared to speak the truth aloud. Harry wasn't attempting to ruin her. He was attempting to find himself. That contrast became excruciatingly obvious that same week. Harry went to a private veterans getting together in Santa Barbara. Just a quiet room with no reporters, no cameras, and no Meghan. Packed with people who had known him long before the documentaries, before the royal departure, and before California turned his existence into a meticulously orchestrated form of liberation. According to witnesses, the environment was substantial but encouraging. Harry once broke down in tears and became really emotional, apparent as he was speaking. He now shared with the group something that stuck with everyone in the room. You are unaware of how lost you are until the compass is taken away. Then, following a pause, he added that he believed he had been doing appropriately. However, he halted at some point. Being who he is, it wasn't overly dramatic. It wasn't a performance. It was truthful in a very few people had ever seen him. The veteran community swiftly shared the moment, not as rumors, but as worry. After years of unrelenting scrutiny, the man's vulnerability was finally emerging. At this point, everything started to come full circle. Not long after, a reporter with extensive what many now consider to be the true turning point, was the drop in connectivity. Behind the scenes, Harry had been working discreetly on a new personal project with a publisher. Meghan disapproved of one. It wasn't just another documentary. It wasn't a headline-driven autobiography. It was much more unnerving. An unvarnished, intensely intimate piece focused on his identity rather than their common story. According to those acquainted with early Nevertheless, the project is startlingly straightforward. No sharing, no spun, and no filters topics of discussion. It examines how sacrifice, love, and loyalty can gradually vanish who you are without even realizing it. Harry isn't narrating a tale influenced by strategy or brand for the first time. Defense. He is narrating his own tale. And that scares Meghan, according to insiders, more than any headline could. Because once the guy she attempted to mentor, control, and shield begins to speak for the illusion is unyielding. It shatters. The brand breaks. The ferries the story fades. And as Harry becomes more reserved, thoughtful, and determined, observers can feel it increasing to the point that he makes no effort to keep it together. What do you think Harry will do? Do now that he's at last being honest? Will the Sussex tale endure? Or is the fairy tale ultimately unraveling? Please share your ideas in the comments section. Remember to subscribe, like, and share.